en la primera facultad de educación del mundo según rankings internacionales, con una tesis sobre la prevención de la violencia de género a través de las tertulias literarias dialógicas. Recordad que la conferencia será en inglés, por lo que si deseáis activar la traducción, en la barra inferior derecha de Zoom se pincha en interpretación y dentro marca la opción de español para escuchar la traducción en español. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias, Eva. Bueno, pues estoy encantada de poder presentar la ponente de la conferencia inaugural y procedo a presentar a Erika Halverson. Erika Halverson, we are very happy to listen to you now. Halverson is a professor at the Department of Curriculum and Instruction at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the #1 school of education according to international rankings. Halverson draws on 25 years as a researcher and teaching artist to offer a blueprint for all classrooms where students and teachers can take risks, collaborate, and work creatively with the arts at the center. Throughout her works, she reminds us that joy is a critical part of learning, and demonstrates how the arts can transform education from meeting standards to changing lives. And for me, I'm especially happy to be able to introduce her, as she has been my advisor at UW-Madison and has helped me so much throughout the PhD. So Erika, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I wish so much that we were all in a room together in Valencia. This was supposed to be my opportunity to visit you all. I am now in my apartment in Barcelona, where I have been staying with my husband for the last 2 months on our sabbatical. And it has been a great joy to get to spend time here, both ourselves on our own and also with some of these wonderful colleagues from the University of Barcelona who have been so kind to invite me in. This is my second opportunity to spend time with these colleagues, and I'm very grateful, and I'm especially honored that Garathi invited me to be able to speak with you all tonight. She's a fantastic emerging scholar, and if you all don't know her, you will. So I'm thrilled to be able to share some thoughts with you this evening, focused on my own work. Let me just get this started. So Garathi mentioned in the introduction that I'm a professor of education, curriculum and instruction, which for us at the University of Wisconsin is both about teacher education, so preparing the next generation of educators, but is also about learning. And my background, my PhD, is in the learning sciences, which is ideas and theories and concepts around what it means to know things. So how do we know what knowing is, and what it means to learn things, and how we take those insights and design learning experiences, learning environments. Those are classrooms, but also after-school programs and spaces, public libraries, museums, how we design those experiences to take advantage of what we understand about what it means to know and what it means to learn. And I thought I would share a little bit with you all about the two passions that I have within this space of learning, and what it means to know and learn, which is ideas about identity development, and specifically how the arts can promote identity development for learners who we work with. So first, a little bit about why. Why do I do this? Why is identity such an important concept in human flourishing? And why is it important that we return to ideas about identity when we think about the design of learning experiences for young people, but also for people of all ages? So, most importantly, identity, the idea of identity, sits at the intersection of what's inside of us and what's outside of us. So we have psychological perspectives on identity that focus on the inside sense-making machines that we have for processing our own sense of who we are. But because we are social beings, our sense of who we are is also always fitted through the interactions that we have in the world. So identity involves the relationship between how I see myself, how other people see me, and my relationship to the communities I claim membership in, so the communities to which I say I belong, and to the communities who claim me as a member. This image that you see on your screen is an artistic representation of my identity. I share it with you because I think it provides an opportunity to think about identity as this relationship. So I am an author. I've written a book, some of which I will share with you. I also host a podcast where I talk with successful artists and their teachers, their mentors, about the impact of arts education on their lives. And as a host, I take on many roles. So this image that you see is an image drawn by an artist who was reflecting back to me what she heard in my conversations about the big ideas that I want to put out into the world about myself, about the arts, about how I perceive myself in relationship to the world. So, it's sort of nice on this big screen so you can see. When I shared this talk earlier with some of these colleagues, I said that there's a pencil stuck behind my ear that looks actually more like a pencil now. When you see it small, it looks like I'm an elf and I have little elf ears. This is not supposed to be an elf. This is supposed to be a pencil to indicate that I am always creating. I'm always making. And this red piece is a cape. And it was really lovely to get this image back from an artist who wanted to portray the way that I think about the arts and education as me as a superhero, which is with the power to save education through conversations about the arts. And so thinking about identity, making identity, doing identity, exploring identity is the most important mechanism that we have for understanding the relationship between our internal sense of who we are and how that internal sense is reflected back into the social world. And we call this building a viable social identity. I adapt this phrase from colleagues Cote and Levine, which are opportunities. Building a viable social identity are opportunities for us to explore how we see ourselves, how other people see us, and how we fit into these communities. And these opportunities are complicated. They're not easy roads. They have tensions. They represent changes. They're the joys, the pains, the victories, the failures, and everything in between. And all of those opportunities are what make us human. So being given space to explore these tensions and changes and joys and pains and victories and failures is really what education ought to be. It ought to provide these kinds of opportunities for all of us. And at least in the US right now, we are really struggling to think about education as acts of building a viable social identity. And so for me, the value of continuing to promote the arts, and by the arts, I mean not just the appreciation of art, but the making of art, the creation of new aesthetic objects that we put into the world. And I will say a little bit more about that, but that these opportunities are the most important ways that we can engage with one another educationally. So let's say that you agree with me that identity and opportunities to create a viable social identity are the single most important thing we can do in education. So say you believe that. Well, how can we go about that? Why would I say the arts are fundamentally so powerful for thinking about identity and identity development? This is an image of the cover of my book, How the Arts Can Save Education. If you are interested in these ideas, you can get this book anywhere fine books are sold. And I have many more of these ideas in the book. I will share a little bit of that with you now. So 2 ways that I like to think about art making as related to identity. So first of all, art making is a process. It's something that we do. And in making art, what we do is explore possible selves, meaning we try on roles, we try on ways of knowing and doing and being. When we act in a play, we are quite literally exploring a possible self. When we make a visual presentation, as I showed you, the cartoon Erica with the cape and the pencil, right? I am exploring a version of myself. But the benefit of doing this through the arts is that this exploration is risky, meaning you can take risks and you can try things, but it is also playful because we don't bring the residue, the after effect of trying these roles on with us into the world. So young children, you'll often see in their dramatic play that they will try on, for example, acting out. They'll try on behaviors that they fear will result in negative consequences. But when you play at them, when you play a naughty child and your friend is playing your frustrated parent, those kinds of games allow you to see what would this be like, but without the effects of mistreating your own parent in the world outside of play. And so this process of art making provides a space for risky and playful behaviors that we otherwise might not try on in our regular lives. I also think about art making as a product. So I mentioned, we create these artifacts, these aesthetic objects. And these objects that we create represent proposals for viable social identity. So we offer to audiences, here is how I see myself. Here's how other people see me. And here's how that vision of myself fits into the communities to which I claim membership. And so we create something for for us to respond to and for others to respond to in a proposal for the identity that we want to make. So what do I mean by that? What does that look like in practice? I want to share with you an example that I think is particularly evocative, particularly interesting for a community of scholars who is thinking about feminisms and masculinity and identities in learning contexts, and how art making is both a process for exploring those complicated relationships, as well as a proposal for how a woman, a particular woman, this woman, Karen, whose face you're seeing on this image, wants to be perceived in the world. So this is a complicated example, as most good art is and ought to be. It's very layered, and it represents a lot of different proposals for thinking about this relationship between how I see myself and how other people see me. I want to tell you a little bit about this example before I share it with you, and then afterwards say a few things about it. So this film is based on a spoken word poem. Now, I don't know if spoken word poetry as an art form is familiar to all of you, but it emerged from the beat poetry of the 1960s, where artists came to think of a poem as not just something that people read, but something that they experience through the voice of the poet themselves. So spoken word poetry is poetry that is designed to be performed. So this poem, Slip of the Tongue, was written and performed by a male poet by the name of Adriel Luis. And the film that you're going to see is the sound of his performance of this poem. I provide in this image some of the text of the poem. If you're interested later in reading the full poem, his website, this is Adriel Luis's website. The full poem, Slip of the Tongue, is printed on this website. And so what you will hear is his spoken word performance of the poem, including, and word for word, I've bracketed off this little piece from the poem to show you that the filmmaker, the movie you're going to see, is Karen Lum, the filmmaker's reinterpretation of this poem through her own eyes. Quite literally, she is the director of the film. She is also the star of the film. So this is her photo. This is an image from her in the film. And for example, when Adriel, the poet, is saying, "Now, this girl was no fool. She gives me a dirty look with a quickness like, boy, you must be stupid." This is the image that you see on the screen. So she has created visual images to represent the words of the poem. She also uses a series of what we would call in filmmaking quick cuts. So a series of images, one after the other, very rapidly, to communicate how overwhelming, how difficult it is to be the right kind of young woman, which is in part what this poem is about. It's about a young woman who is being asked on a date, and her response when he tries to kind of bring her in into his world. And so she uses a series of very fast images to give the feeling of what it is like to try to be a young woman in this world. And so I would argue she's working both on message, so she's working both on the content of what Adriel is saying, but she's also working on aesthetic. So she's using the aesthetics of filmmaking to make this point about how it feels to be a young woman in this complicated world. So I'm going to show you this film. It's short. It's a little more than 4 minutes. He is speaking very, very fast. You will not understand most of what he is saying. That's okay. Sometimes I give a whole class session with students, many of whom are native English speakers, and we watch the film multiple times in order to be able to understand what he's saying. This is not the point for me. The point for me is for you to experience hearing a male voice in a live performance, so you will also hear the audience that he's speaking to respond to the poetry. And I would love for you to listen for those moments of applause, because you can see what Karen, the filmmaker, does with those moments of applause in her film. And I want you to pay attention to how the images, how what you see often mirrors what you're hearing. Not the content of what you're hearing, but the pace of what you're hearing, the intensity of what you're hearing, and generally how this story of a young man trying to get a young woman to agree to go on a date with him, what that unleashes for this young woman. I have to reshare my screen through YouTube. So I need a second. Oh, I see. Sorry. Okay. So I hope you enjoy Slip of the Tongue.
My glares burned through her. And I'm sure that such actions aren't foreign to her, because the essence of her beauty is, well, the essence of beauty. And in the presence of this higher being, the weakness of my masculinity kicks in, causing me to personify my wannabe, big baller, shot caller, God's gift to the female species with shiny suit, rapping like, I get what's fucking shorty, how you living, what's your sign, what's your size, I dig your style, yo. Now, this girl was no fool. She gives me a dirty look with the quickness, like, boy, you must be stupid. So I'm looking at myself like, boy, you must be stupid. But looking upon her, I am kind of feeling her style. So I try again, but instead of addressing her properly, I blurt out one of my fake-ass playalistic lines like, girl, you must be a traffic ticket, because you got fine written all over you. Now she's trying to leave, and I'm trying to keep her here. And so with a final attempt, I got her, girl, what is your ethnic makeup? See? At this point, her glare was scorching through me. And somehow she manages to make her brown eyes resemble some kind of brown fire or something. But there's no snap or head movement, no palm to face, click of tongue, middle finger, roll of eyes, or girl power chant. She just glares at me with these burning eyes, and her gaze grabs me by the throat, and she says, ethnic makeup? First of all, makeup just an anglicized, colonized, commodified utility that my sisters have been programmed to consume, forcing them to cover up their natural state in order to emulate when another sister looks like in her natural state, because people keep telling her that the other sister's natural state is more beautiful than the first sister's natural state. At the same time, the other sister isn't even in her natural state, because she's trying to imitate yet another sister. So in actuality, the natural state that the first sister was trying to imitate wasn't even natural in the first place. Nah, I'm thinking, damn, this girl's kicking knowledge. But meanwhile, she keeps spitting on it like, fine, I'll tell you about my ethnic makeup. I wear foundation, not that powdery stuff. I wear the foundation laid by my indigenous people. It's that foundation that makes it so that past being globalized, I can still vocalize with confidence. I know where my roots are. I wear this foundation not upon my face, but within my soul. And I take this from my ancestors, because I'll be damned if I ever let a European or American corporation tell me what my foundation should look like. And I don't wear lipstick, but my lips stick to the ears of men so they can experience and surround sound my screams of agony with each lash of rulers, measuring tape, and scales, as if my waistline and weight are inversely proportional to my value as a human being. See, my lips, they stick, but not together. Rather, they flail open with flames to burn down this culture that once kept them shut. Now mess with eyeshadow, but my eyes shadow over this timeline where you're gonna end to keep me blind, but you can't cover my eyes, look into them. My eyes foreshadow change. My eyes foreshadow light. And I'm not into hair dyeing, but I'm here dying because this oppression just won't get out of my hair. They form these highlights on my past atrocities. They tangle around my mind. This oppression, it manifests, stressing me so that even though I don't color my hair, in a couple of years it'll look like I dyed it gray. So what's my ethnic makeup? I don't have any, because your ethnicity isn't something you can just make up. And as far as that shit that my sisters put on their faces, that's not makeup. It's make-believe. I can't seem to look up at her. And I'm sure that such actions aren't foreign to her, because her expression shows that she knows that my mind is in the trance. As her footsteps fade, my ego is left in crutches. And rejection never sounded so sweet.
If you ever want to watch that film again, I have given you the link in this PowerPoint to the YouTube file where it is. So you are welcome to watch it again. A few things, other things about this film. So at the time that this was made, Karen was 17 years old. So she produced this as a 17-year-old high school student working in collaboration with other high school students, and the mentorship of some older teaching artists. But the shaping of the narrative, the reshaping, was hers entirely. And that's important for understanding why this process is such a crucial way that we can engage with identity through art making. So I would argue that creating these representations, so taking a poem, making a film, sharing that film, is the heart of what it means to be an effective art maker. So it's not about the piece that is the most beautiful, or the television show that wins the most acclaim, or the music that has the features most similar to that of our most cared for teacher, but rather it's in the creating of these representations that we have the opportunity to explore the relationship between how I see myself and how other people see me. So first of all, art making involves the telling of stories. In this case, the story is Karen's retaking of the narrative of being asked out on a date. So Adriel is relaying a story of a time that a girl turned him down. Karen is taking that back and remaking it into her own story of how she is making sense of herself in relationship to the young men in her life. It's about adapting stories. So it's the choices that she made as a filmmaker. I don't know if you were able to hear, but every time the audience listening to the poem applauded, we got a very long shot of Karen's face, as if she had just said those words to the young man who was sitting at the bus stop with her. So she allows that sound to serve as an opportunity for reflection. And that's a choice in adaptation. It's a way she's using film to make a point about how she's interacting with this young man. And then finally, a key aspect of narrative art making, here I have performing stories. I would say the broader category is having an audience for stories. So this film was made for people to watch. It was made for people to react to. It was made to cause both agreement, but also to challenge, and also to give other young people an opportunity to reflect on who was well treated in this situation, who was badly treated. Did she do the right thing? Did he do the right thing? When was he making a proposition and when was she making a proposition? But it is in the sharing, in the audience for the work, that we have the opportunity for those conversations. And then finally, and this is one of my favorite, we call it, I don't know if this is the same expression, a 50-cent word. I should probably update it. It should be like a €5 word or something that describes the learning outcome associated with making such a film. So we call it the development of meta-representational competence, where meta means thinking about, representational means the creation of something, and competence simply means being good at it. And so in creating this film, Karen is developing an understanding of how the tools of filmmaking allow her the opportunity to express complex ideas, in this case about dating, that she makes, that she develops an understanding of these ideas. And it turns out that this competency is actually the most important skill for academic success of all kinds. When we learn mathematics, what we are developing is meta-representational competence. We are learning how to express complex mathematical ideas using equations, using variables, using graphs, that these tools and an understanding of how you use those tools is what becoming good at mathematics is. And so learning to do this work in the arts also allows students to learn to do this work in other disciplines and domains. And to bring it back to why I wanted to share this work with you, when the meta-representational competence is focused on personal stories, on our own experiences, it allows for the creation of a viable social identity through the process of trying on risky and playful identities, and as a proposition, as a product that we can share with audiences for them to react to, for us to get their feedback, and for us to consider as we engage with one another in the world. I hope that these remarks are useful to you. I hope more than anything that they bring you some joy. I'm a big proponent of the role of joy in any learning environment. Maybe you're lucky we're not all in person, because I probably would have made you all stand up and do something silly together as a way for us to begin our time. Because joy is sometimes the most difficult way that we can learn to be together. So I hope this brings you a little joy, and I hope that in the rest of your time together, you can think about the ways in which arts and art making can serve as a platform for many of the complicated and complex and difficult ideas that you'll be discussing in the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Erica, for your wonderful presentation. And with this, we close the first day of CICFEM. Thanks all of you for being here, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you everyone for your time. I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias a todos. Damos por concluido el primer día de CICFEM. Gracias a todos los participantes por haber estado aquí y gracias a Erika por su última conferencia. Y pues, muchas gracias.